You think of our world today, society, especially the United States specifically, it's a pretty divided place. You got the Republicans and the Democrats, and they seem to talk over each other and accuse and condemn each other rather than try to communicate and solve problems. You have problems with industry, problems with mask and no mask people, and you have problems everywhere you turn. And some of those ripples of division and disunity roll into the church. It's a more divided world than I've seen in my lifetime. But there was a time in our nation's history, some time back, when our country was even more divided. It got through the division through war, a civil war. It got through the division over months of healing and years of healing after the war. As you know, the war was the dividing of a country between the North and the South. It was back in June 16th, 1858, when a young, self-educated man observed this division in his day. It motivated him to get off his seat, to try to do something about it. So he began that journey, which would lead to his political future, in Illinois, at the Illinois Republican Convention in Springfield, Illinois. I've been in that area, used to live in that area. You probably know who this man is I'm talking about. His name was Abraham Lincoln. He kicked off his bid for the U.S. Senate with a speech that would come to be known as a speech, House Divided. House divided. Something we should definitely work to avoid within the church. We can't solve society's ills and problems that are in this day, and with our influence, it's going to help some, in a few cases, but it's not going to change the direction of a society that's on a downward slope to destruction, just like it was then. The Civil War was the result, the war between the states. More people, more Americans died in that war than any other wars I remember. But in that speech, President Lincoln said this as part of it: if we could first know where we are. It's a good advice for us today. Where are we? Where are we, brethren? We know where we are within the church. Are we divided or are we united? Are we working toward growth and development of others or just ourselves? If we could know where we are and whether we are tending, that is, headed where we're tending, to use his old English he used, we could better judge what to do and how to do it. It's good advice. Figure out where you're at, figure out where you want to go, get your goals in mind, and personally or individually or as a group, and then go that way. He says, we are now far into the 5th year since the policy was initiated with the avowed object. The purpose of that initiation was, and the confident promise, he says, of putting an end to slavery agitation. An end to slavery. That divided the country tremendously. And the Civil War was the result, because the president continued as he became president from that effort to become a senator. He would fight that war. He would lead the country to stay together, even though it looked like it was going to fall apart for sure. But he goes on in the speech to say, looking forward to where he was then and where he would be going. Under the options of that policy, he says, that agitation has not only not ceased, but has constantly augmented, that is built up and built up. He could see society going the wrong direction. That's why he got into politics. That's why he was going to try to make a difference with his life and his efforts to unite a country that was very divided. He says, in my opinion, it will not cease. The division is not going to go away. It will not cease until a crisis has been reached and passed, which actually happened as he was president. Then he says these famous words: a house divided against itself cannot stand. It's not going to work. Where do you think he got those words from? We'll talk about that in a minute. He goes on to say, I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. It's not going to last. He had the wisdom and the intellect to see where it was going. I do not expect the union to be dissolved, he did say. I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. That took a war, a civil war. It took months and years afterwards for the North and South to finally come back together in some sort of unity. Once you divide, once you fight, it's really hard to heal the wounds. It took another generation before it really began to happen. in any serious way. And he goes on to say, I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all the other. Well, we know what happened in the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln. Where did he get those words? A house divided cannot stand. Well, he paraphrased a quote from the Bible. When he was growing up, he was sitting next to the fireplace. I've seen the replica of his home in the Illinois area. It's a small little house that he lived in. Actually, he never lived there, to tell the story properly. His mom and dad lived there. He let them have it. He helped pay the payments on that house, but he really never lived there. He would visit once in a while, but it wasn't really his home. But he grew up reading by the fireplace at night the Bible, and he was entrenched in it. It became part of the learning language that he was developing as a young man. And then he got those words from Luke 11, verse 17. Luke 11, verse 17, he paraphrased. It says there, but he, knowing their thoughts, said to them, every kingdom, this is Christ's words. Jesus Christ is making a principle here. He's the one who created everything, and everybody knows every thought in everybody's mind at any time. He knows human nature backwards and forwards, even though he doesn't have it. Every kingdom divided against itself brought to dissolution, and a house divided against a house falls. That's just 1 + 1 = 2. And Abraham Lincoln was wise enough to see that in his time. He made a major difference in keeping this one united country united. The Civil War between the states was finally happening when he was president. So this afternoon, brethren, just take a quick look at how we need to avoid being divided and division, and how we need to grow in unity. And that means coming to church and being here in person, spending time socializing with each other, getting to know each other well, encouraging others as well. So if we are going to be united, not divided, we need to do, as the title of this message is, avoiding division and creating unity. When the church is united, think about it for a minute, we become a safe haven, a resting place. You can come and really let your hair down and be yourself. We do it in the proper way. It could be a productive home where growth of our membership blossoms. That's what we're looking for. A place where we can find peace, nurturing, share lives with each other. A friend of mine just got a new job, and it's pretty exciting to see her launching out in that new endeavor. We can share things, cross generations, because we live the same way. We have the same thoughts. We try to obey God. So we can find peace and unity and shelter from the outside world right here in this church, the Church of God in Seattle, Washington. It is critically important that we strive for unity, brethren. Without unity, the church will never be a safe haven from the storms of life, which is what it should be, a cocoon that inside is growing a new creature from that little crawling caterpillar into a beautiful butterfly. That's what we're all here in this cocoon to do, to develop that. So united we stand, to quote the president, divided we fall. Why is that? Why is unity and peace so elusive in this world? Well, there's one cause, the God of this world. Satan is just waiting. Our adversary, the devil, is effective in his strategies. He knows division, and he knows how to conquer. That's what he does. Divide and conquer. He's looking for any little opening that could be there, that could spark a new crack in the church, a new division. Oh, mask, no mask. Whatever it might be, he could be there, and he will be there with all of his demons surmounting their efforts through jealousy and resentment and non-forgiveness or unforgiveness. We must pray for each other, brethren, because our adversary, the devil, is there as a roaring lion, as Paul talked about. He hasn't gone away. He's not going to go away until he's locked away. He's looking for every crevice and crack that might cause another splint within the church of God. Let's go back to Ephesians 4:11-15. Ephesians 4:11-15. Christ himself said these words. He says in Ephesians 4:11-15, he himself, that's Christ, gave some apostles and some prophets. Well, who do you think you are? It's like they told Paul, are you an apostle? Paul had to go through in Corinthians and go through a litany of things that showed he was an apostle, because some people didn't accept him as such, but God did. God used him powerfully. So Christ is the one that appoints apostles and prophets and evangelists and pastors and teachers. We all have different strengths. We're all different. That's a good thing. It shouldn't divide us. It should unite us. We need each other. I need people to look at my messages and say, you misspelled that word, Rod, and what about, that isn't really very clear. And I appreciate the people that are willing to share that with me and give me a chance, because they have a different kind of brain than I do. So we need to be working with each other, brethren, as a team to build this unity within the church. We all have different strengths and personalities, and again, that's a good thing. But we're one body, one group, same Spirit, same God. And then in verse 12, it says, Ephesians 4, verse 12, why is it the church Christ sets each one of the church as it pleases him? But why? What's the purpose? Why are we here? Verse 12, for the equipping of the saints. Oh, we need to equip ourselves with knowledge and insight and unity to be together as one. For equipping the saints, and for the edifying of the body of Christ. What's the goal? What's the purpose? Verse 13. Till we all, not just one, not just lone wolf sitting in his home, till we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God. A perfect man. None of us have that goal met, do we? We're not a perfect man or woman yet. We're still working in that direction. We have a ways to go, and that's what the church is all about. It helps us to go in the right direction, in the right way, in unity and peace and harmony. I'm going to say, until we get to the stature and the fullness of Christ, verse 14, that we should no longer be children. I love little children. I love talking and playing with kids. I grew up in a large family, having a lot of children around. But we no longer need to be children tossed to and fro and carried about by every wind of doctrine, trickery of men and cunning craftiness of deceitfulness, plotting that goes on, manipulating behind the scenes. Oh, I'm going to get this position or that position. We should be here to serve each other, not to serve ourselves. In the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting, but speaking the truth in love, L-O-V, a word we should be coming back to often, that we may grow up, brethren, in all things, and to him, the head, which is Christ. Albert Einstein, the famous, brilliant inventor and philosopher, he said this, Albert Einstein, a life lived for others is the only life well lived. It's the only life well lived. I agree with him. And then Frederick Von Schindler, the famous person that saved hundreds of Jews during World War II and kept them from the Nazis being arrested, hid them away. I've been past to the outside of the house where some of the people at that time lived. So he said this. Imagine him now. He's got all these people hiding in different places. He's trying to save their lives in World War II, and he saved hundreds. He says this, even the weak, those Jews he was protecting, he must have been thinking about, become stronger when they are united. Brethren, the weak, we are the weak of the world. We become stronger when we're united. So just a few quick closing points here. Here are a few things we can keep in mind to bring better unity within the church. Number one, avoid controversial subjects. Some people like to talk in controversial ways, and if you know the person that good, you can say, well, what about this? And you can have a good intellectual discussion. That's fine. But make sure the person that you're talking to is not going to hold a grudge because you have a different opinion. So sometimes it's best to avoid sensitive subjects. Number two, agree to disagree. Well, I understand how you feel. I used to feel that way, but now I feel this way. It's accepting. It's not condemning. Agree to disagree. Number three, love one another. Again, there's that L-O-V word. And then closing, 5 simple principles that you can keep in mind. And keep in the top of your brain. Plant it right there in the frontal lobe. Before you speak, think about these 5 things. Number one, is it true? Am I exaggerating? Am I lying? Am I shading the truth? Is it true? Is it helpful? Number two, is it going to help this person if I tell him how I really feel? Or is it going to offend him? Number three, is it important? Some things are better left unsaid. You don't have to tell the whole truth all the time, especially if it's going to offend somebody. Number 4, is it necessary or is it negative? Is it necessary? Well, I really need to explain this to them. Or is it negative? And number 5, is it kind? Is it kind? We'll close here now with a quick passage in Psalm 133, verses 1 through 3. It's an ascent, song of ascent by David. You know the song very well. We sing it from our hymnal. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren dwelling together in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head running down the beard of Aaron, running down on the edge of the garment. It is like the dew of Hermon, descending upon the Mount Zion, that's Jerusalem. It is like the dew of Hermon, descending upon Mount Zion. For there in Mount Zion, the Lord commanded a blessing of life forevermore for those who live in unity.